Good afternoon. I'm Steve Bassett, and along with Aaron Marsden, I would like to welcome everyone on behalf of CANASA and Security Canada to our weekly online learning session. I would like to say a special thank you to Senstar for their support and sponsoring today's session. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Jeremy Wiese, Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer with Senstar. Jeremy joined Senstar in 1999 in a design engineering role. During his tenure, Jeremy has moved through progressive levels of responsibility within the Research and Development Department. Prior to becoming SVP and COO, Jeremy was responsible for the company's product portfolio and research and development activities as Vice President of Engineering. Feel free to type any questions you may have for Jeremy during the session into the Q&A window at the bottom of your screen, and he will respond during the Q&A portion roughly 20 minutes from now. I will now turn the session over to Jeremy. Welcome, Jeremy, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for the introduction, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to start the presentation. For those of you who are joining us who, share the screen one moment. There we go. Perfect. I believe it's up there now.
Yeah, looks good.
So for those of you who may or may not know, Senstar is a Canadian company, manufacturer located in Ottawa with a software development arm located in Waterloo. The PIDS side, or the perimeter intrusion detection system side of the business, has been around for almost 40 years. Located in Ottawa, started in Ottawa, manufacturing facility there where all the sensor products we sell are designed and tested and manufactured. 2016, Senstar acquired Ametis, another Canadian company with extensive experience in video management and video analytics, and to add that to our portfolio so we could bring the market more comprehensive security solutions. What we're here to talk about today is our Safe Spaces platform, which is a solution to help manage various aspects of COVID-19 and keeping businesses open and operating. There are a number of health requirements or process requirements to work about in retail spaces, manufacturing spaces, anywhere where you have people together, so that we're able to continue to work without increasing infection. This is a national problem in Canada, international problem globally, and the rules and regulations change all the time. So what Senstar has developed, again, is this tool set which can be used to help manage and monitor those processes in a flexible way based on how the rules and regulations change through time. So the four principal analytics in the Safe Spaces platform are face mask detection, presence of a face mask when a person enters in front of the camera. Physical distancing, are people maintaining that social distancing requirement, which seems to be, universally settled upon at 2 meters now? Are people sanitizing their hands or washing their hands? Again, upon entry to many retail environments or into a manufacturing space, there is a requirement to go through a process to ensure that you've minimized the chances of passing an infection on, as well as occupancy limits. This is another part of the equation in terms of keeping the volume of people and the risk of that infection down within the space. So what you see here is the Edge platform, which is where the Safe Spaces functionality is housed or provided. It's an embedded fanless device. You can see the reference size of the hand that you can drop into any system regardless of what's there. So as I said, it's a drop-in solution. It's agnostic to the VMS that may be present today. There's no need to rip and replace whatever the monitoring system that may exist in that environment, if there is one. It standalone will operate, taking ONVIF input from existing cameras on the network and provide a display that shows you how the analytics are working with a dashboard to monitor what has happened. The configuration is simple on the device, web-based, where you can configure up to 6 different video streams to use a combination of up to 18 different analytic instances on those 6 streams. So it has a GPU in there, as I said, fanless, which gives you that capacity to run these analytics concurrently to implement a solution which you will need, to based on your facility and the local rules. So while you're ingesting those video streams, performing the analytics, passing that on to a secondary system or displaying it locally, there's other means to provide alerts. It could be alerts to responsible for that facility so they can, correct the situation, whether it's, employees or visitors to the facility. Also, IP speaker integration to give that audible, instantaneous correction, which in many cases it's a reminder. A lot of the time, that's all that people need. And you can take, if there's a thermal camera requirement there to measure temperature or attempt at fever detection, you can pass that through the system via ONVIF and trigger upon the alerts within that profile. So I'm going to show you some examples of the performance here. This is actually our Waterloo office where people come in through the front door, and you can see identification of the mask when the person passes by the field of view. And again, with any of these analytics, you need to have a camera positioned properly. You have to sort of meet the analytics halfway and then having an appropriate installation. In this case, there's no mask. You can see quickly identified that the mask is not on the person. This is an example where it's showing the robustness of the analytic with a high volume of traffic, numerous masks, and it's picking off who has a mask within the crowd. In this case, everybody's wearing a mask, and you can see the square showing green that the mask is identified. The next analytic is the physical distancing. Again, referring back to that 2-meter requirement. In space, depending on the space, it can be difficult to manage that, but there are areas where operationally, people should not be in proximity. If it's an example here at our own factory, we have people on the manufacturing floor. We have set them up at their stations. They continue to work in their own space without contact or coming in proximity to each other. And this analytic is appropriate to be run there so that if a group congregates to look at something or people are passing too close together, you drive that audible reminder just as a correction. Please observe the physical distancing. It could be within the store, maybe the aisles of a grocery store, for example. There's going to be those examples where you have a family walking or a couple that the analytic does not know about, so it has to be considered in how it's deployed. The hand sanitization or hand cleaning analytic, this is based on the behavior of the individual. So you know that it takes a certain amount of time to have properly cleaned, washed, or sanitized your hands. So standing or dwelling at the station is a fairly reasonable indicator that the rules have been followed. So in that example, you've seen the person walked on past the hand sanitizing the Purell pump on the wall. This time, they're standing there and going to have the cleanest hands ever here in a second, but the alarm itself is set for 20 seconds. So if they meet that requirement of staying in place, going through the motions for 20 seconds, no alarm is raised. If they were to pass through quickly, an audible reminder again, or some other form of notification to the supervisor could be accomplished through the IP speaker or the mobile alert. In this example, I'm showing occupancy monitoring. So keeping track of the individuals coming and going from a space is important, so you know what the total number of people is there. There may be a limit imposed by public health that there can only be 10 people in this given square footage. In this particular example, what we're showing is our own stockroom within the facility, and you see a person cross the line, increments the count to 9. In the bottom right corner, you see the screen. This would be displayed locally from the unit via HDMI on a monitor. It will also be available via IP in a future release. So as people come and go, it increments and decrements so that you have an idea when you come up to that entrance, how many people are inside. And I'll show a use case for this in a few seconds. The configuration of the device, again, web-based. So you're adding your cameras, 6 different cameras to the system, ONVIF compliant cameras. So if they properly support the standard, you'll be able to find them and add them to the system. You configure the individual analytics. So you have the face mask detection in the upper left corner, the people counting in the upper right, the social distancing in the lower left, and the hand sanitization in the lower right. So there are parameters associated with each of those, from the time or the face size, which are fairly intuitive to configure once the camera position is known and you're seeing the video feed. The output of the system, if you're not displaying the local occupancy counting, you can then show a 1 to 6 up view of the different analytics running with the decorations of the results on them. Within the device, the individual events are logged with a snapshot of the event occurred. So in this case, you could see that this particular Leafs fan was entering the building without a mask. So maybe you want to have a conversation with them after to say, look, you know what the rules are. You should be wearing your mask each time you enter the facility. So it's designed for indoor use. That's where the analytics perform best, with your cameras positioned to maximize the performance. There may be existing cameras. Some of them might have to be repositioned, or it could be a new standalone deployment with 1 or 2 cameras to, control the occupancy in a space. It's there to augment and help monitor the protocols. So 6 cameras per device, up to 18 analytics total. The only real limitation is that you're running 2 face recognition analytics per platform. You cannot run 18 face recognition analytics due to the weight of the processing on those. So some of the use cases, just to help understand how you might deploy this. This could be the entranceway into a food processing environment where the employees enter. They go through the motion of washing, sanitizing before they go into the food area. So you have 2 cameras monitoring the wash stations and running an analytic to make sure everybody complies with whatever the duration of time is necessary to ensure the hands have been sanitized properly. Upon entrance, you can determine, yes, they have the face mask, come on. And then what the occupancy of this space is, because you probably only want 6 people in here because there's 6 hand washing stations. So there'd be signage at the entrance saying what the occupancy is, but also what the total occupancy on the manufacturing and plant floor is. In this case, you're running 5 total analytics on 1 edge platform to implement that functionality. And again, this could be part of an existing system where the data is pushed to an existing VMS via ONVIF, or it could be a standalone deployment just for managing this area. And the retail environment, you have multiple entry points. So you're going to want to aggregate that counting. And the Edge platform allows you to do that. Between each of the occupancy counting analytics, you get a total occupancy of the space. As well, you have the face mask detection and hand sanitizing running at each entrance, assuming that there's proper signage greeting the person coming in that they need to do that. And then you can have physical distancing, for instance, running at the kiosk or the checkout counter to make sure that people are queuing in line with the sufficient space. So in this case, there's 10 analytics running across 2 edge platforms because you have 3 face mask detections, that it drives that need for the extra edge platform because you are limited to 2 per. In this case, this was the one I was going to talk about. I showed you the stockroom example here at Senstar where we knew what the occupancy was. One of the more complicated ones, or places where I personally even find when you're entering a washroom, you kind of toe the door open and take a peek to see how many people in there. Having occupancy counting at the entrance to that space with a simple monitor there driven by the HDMI output from the platform will give you a total count and total occupancy in the washroom. So I mean, based on your own comfort level or what the rules are, you have a clear indication of what the situation is in there before having to go in. So in this case, it's one analytic and one camera or one edge platform with the camera mounted above to do that occupancy counting. Another use case, again, this is a cafeteria, could be a restaurant. What's the physical distancing within? And if you have two entrance points, what's the occupancy? In this case, there's a dedicated traffic flow, so you're counting in the one side and decrementing out the other, but then the edge platform's taking care through the analytic to manage that increment decrement to maintain the total occupancy counting, along with the hand sanitizing on the entry. So one edge platform and 6 different analytics in this case. So the device is available now, continually augmenting the software with additional features and training the analytics with more experience as we move forward. You can find out more information about the device specifically by going to senstarsafespaces.com. You'll find different video clips and specs and more information about the setup there and how it can be configured and deployed. The price for the unit itself is $19.90 US. So you can reach out through our website to get more information about where you buy it or to your local Senstar sales rep. And thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. That was great. If anyone has any questions, please type them into your Q&A window now. First question. Hi, Jeremy. From a security guard station, the on-screen will alert the guards so it is discreet.
Yes. So if that was the security guard could have the display there and, depending on 1 to 6 views of the different analytics running with a notification locally of what the situation is so they can interact however the procedures dictate.
Okay. What is the list price and can you put multiple tied together?
So list price, as I mentioned, was $19.90 US. You can put as many of these together as you want. So the edge platform, which is something we're working on for a broader set of solutions, it's a scalable solution. They do not necessarily connect together. You can add one unit, direct the necessary camera feeds to it, and then the output via the ONVIF to another VMS or monitor. And if you need twice as many cameras, you add another unit, and so on and so forth. So it scales out linearly based on what the requirement is, making it easy to expand. Or if infrastructure dictates and you want to have a unit on one side of the facility where there's a screen and then a unit on the other side of the facility where there's a screen, it's easy to do so because you're not dealing with a central processing box.
Okay. Can this be connected to a door strike for authorized entry purposes? And analytics confirm either unlocks or refuses entry?
No, this does not connect to a door strike directly. You'd have to route it through another system. So if you had a access control system or a VMS system with the capability to control those doors, you could take the ONVIF output data as part of the system triggers to do that.
Okay, thanks. Next up, what is the data security environment and data transfer for the personal data ecosystem?
So the units themselves it's typically operating on the inside of your network, closed network potentially, but whatever the firewalls are within the facility boundary or the network boundary. There's no TLS running on the individual streams or anything like that here at this point. You would have to manage that at the facility level.
Okay, thank you. Is there a limit to the number of cameras that can be included in the aggregated count?
You can include all 6 in the aggregated account.
Thank you. Can this edge device be managed by Symphony?
Yes, it can.
Next up here, are there any considerations for the mounting of the unit, and how much heat does it generate?
So the unit itself should be in an area where there's a reasonably free air volume or airflow. It is a compact fanless unit, so it needs to have space to radiate that heat through the foils on the top. There's 2 mounting tabs, which make it easy to mount, horizontally, vertically on a wall. Don't bury it in the back of a closet. It's not going to get sufficient air circulation, and eventually you will run into performance problems with any piece of electronics.
Okay, thank you. And looks like our last question. What is the best positioning of the camera to detect face masks at the entrance to a room?
Oh, that's going to depend on a variety of factors, which you should probably reach out to your integrator or your Senstar rep to look at that individual situation. What's the resolution of the camera? What's the lighting? But the angle where the camera is positioned relative to the face, you can't do it if you're looking from above. So you want to get a good frontal view of the person. But there are other nuances to that it's worth checking out to be sure ahead of time.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you for joining us. And once again, thank you to Jeremy Weiss and Senstar for their support. At the close of this session, a link to register for next week's session will pop up. Please be sure to register. We look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, be well.